Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Millennials, Strawberry Generation, and Snowflake Generation. Welcome to your podcast, Next Door.
Grab yourself a cup of tea and join us on Tea Talk. Presenting the hosts of Tea Talk,
Kai and Tiara.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast, which is called
Tea Talk.
Woohoo! This is episode 9, and episode 9 will be quite a big topic. But before we jump into the main topic, again, we're going to do like a wrap up of the news of the week. So, like how we introduced in the previous episode, we just take the biggest topic of the 7 days past, and we wrap it up in a very little segment just to keep anyone up to speed. If you miss the current affairs, the news that has been viral all over these 7 days, this is one chance for you to keep yourself updated. And with that, let's head on to News of the Week. All right, the first topic, Tiara, or guys, right? The first news is about, of course, it's about the general elections.
Yeah, it's the talk of the town this week. There's so many things that happen.
Wow.
So we're not gonna get into the specifics because we're pretty sure you've seen all of the 1,000,001 memes on your social media. So we're just gonna like rapid fire it.
Yes, number 1 will be on Ivan Lim.
The dude who just decided to not contest in this general election.
I think if he were to stay on, the pressure will build up, and I don't know whether he can bottle it up and if he's going to erupt anytime soon or not, because the criticisms that were online were pretty much savage.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's like people who once upon a time in his life just came out of nowhere and started to say very, very bad things about him. By bad things, we mean all the nasty things that he had done from his previous work life or whatever in school, in military, when he was a CO. So a lot of things all bunched up together. A lot of people came out together and spoke out about him. And he was supposed to be the next candidate for the general elections for PAP. And because of all these pressures, I thought, I don't know whether it's because of the pressure or because it's some advice from his higher ups saying that, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be running on this campaign. Maybe try again, maybe in 5 years' time. I don't know. Maybe it'll be better by then. So Ivan Lim, big news. He's no longer running for GE.
Next up, we have our MVP this week amongst a lot of us. I mean, we are just going to be very neutral, but it is, I think Karan should just say who this guy is.
Also, this is like the first ever general elections debate that we had in Singapore.
Oh yeah.
Never ever on live television, at least to my knowledge and my memory lah. Maybe when I was young, maybe there was, and I was too young to understand it anyways. But as far as I remember, this is the first general elections debate that they have from opposition as well as the ruling party coming together in one setting and airing out all the dirty laundries that they have about each other. And the MVP for this one will be WP's Jamus Lim. Wow, that guy, whoa. I don't know, I think from what he was saying and how he was expressing his ideas, WP's ideas, and how he kind of like wrapped things up, won many hearts overnight. All right. Just to give you guys a summary, this is the thing that we both totally love what he said. So he said, the People's Action Party doesn't have a monopoly on best ideas on how we should bring the society forward. The truth is, the PAP, in all likelihood, would have this mandate by the end of this election. What we are trying to deny the PAP is a blank check. And that is what I think the election is about. Whoa.
And that like what he said was it just became like an instant hit, which it makes a lot of sense. I like him because he's very eloquent. He can speak really well, and he doesn't have any arrogance in him. Like when he talks, he's just like very smiley. You can tell that he means well. At least that's what I think anyway.
Yeah, I cannot detect any stiff upper lip,
Yeah.
when he was talking. No elitism vibe
Yeah.
that comes out from him.
And I like that he kept because I think he was the last speaker to wrap the debate up. And yeah, even though despite the short time that he had, I think he wrapped it up very, very nicely. And he quoted what Chee Soon-juan said, and everyone said. It's basically kind of saying that we have to work together for our people. And then that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, and I totally love at one of these particular meme that had Vivian Balakrishnan looking at him.
Lovingly, right?
Yeah, and the only thing that wasn't present was like a love song.
Yeah. When I look at that photo, all I could think of is like your favorite cheesy song ever.
Yeah.
Careless Whisper.
Oh. Kind of set the mood, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that was the second one. The third one, don't know whether anyone's going to be happy about this. I'm sure there will be. It is the opening of many, many avenues, many, many places, such as
you have your zoo, your casino, your cinemas are opening very soon, limited to 50 pax capacity. What else? I guess your typical Jurong Bird Park.
Wait. Talking about cinemas opening soon, I don't know what kind of blockbuster is going to be played next. I don't know. Is there any? The only thing I can think of is Black Widow. I don't know whether it's already been out in the States or anywhere else in the world. I don't know. Yeah, but if it's going to be out, I'm totally looking forward to that.
Yes.
Black Widow. Okay, so that has been the news of the week. Okay, we hope you guys are enjoying this little segment of ours. And for today's topic, it's going to be quite a heavy one. I don't know how often we're going to do a lot of heavy topics.
I don't know.
Yeah, but it's something that we have to air it out.
Yes.
All right. So the topic for today is everyone should know about autism.
Yes.
Okay, this topic is based on a very recent viral video on Facebook, on Instagram as well. It has brought quite a commotion in many communities, especially on the social front. And to give a preface, Tiara, let's have you on the floor.
But I'm on a chair. Okay, quick one. All right. Lil. Okay, so a couple of days ago, before we recorded this podcast, I caught wind of a social post that was going on Instagram about a boy, a young child who is considered under the autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, and he was basically mistreated by his behavioral therapist at his own home. And this whole thing actually occurred last year. So the video came about and it got viral, it got shared, and apparently this happened sometime last year, and a year later there was no follow-up for towards the kid's parents. The thing is that the person who was mistreating the child, the behavioral therapist, he was just led away with a warning. And if you have seen the video, I don't think that it is a way to be treating any child, whether or not they are quote unquote normal or in the autism spectrum. And justice needs to be served lah. It's not right, And the latest update is that the video has been given to the police, but the police say that it's not enough evidence to constitute something.
That's just sad.
Yeah, it's just really sad. So that's the whole thing about, that's why we want to talk about it. And thankfully we know people who are very well versed in in this spectrum. To be honest with you, even though having both of us studied psychology, we did not deep dive during our education in the whole in autism specifically, because if you are not familiar with how psych works in Singapore, you basically study psych until your degree, until your degree, and in your masters, if I'm not mistaken, you choose an area of psychology that you want to pursue. So you can do counseling, you can do therapy, and autism is just one of the wings that you can consider for your future. So that's not something that Karun and I actually deep dive into. We know like basics of it, but we did not go deep into the topic. So with that being said, like I shared with you guys earlier, we are very blessed, and we are very we are just, I think we know people who are well versed in this area, and we feel that this is a platform whereby we want to educate you guys, and we hope that this podcast will actually shed some light for you guys to understand what ASD is all about. Like when you call someone quote unquote retarded, like is that wrong or correct? What is the correct terminology? How spectrum is this spectrum? And we hope that at the end of this podcast you will be enlightened, you will understand a little bit more, and if you don't see a need to feel sorry for this kid, then I hope that this podcast will change your mind.
Yes, and also we're going to include some sensitivity issues, what to be sensitive about, especially on this topic. Based on whatever Tiara has just said, we are going to invite a guest in our studio. Studio say. Actually, there's no studio because everything is done digitally.
Yeah.
So it's a virtual studio.
Yes. Okay, so first up we have Rose. So she is, let's just put it that she's very well versed in the area of ASD. Generally, she's just well versed in this area because she has experience in communicating and in handling children or individuals with who are in the autism spectrum disorder, and we're gonna learn from her what autism spectrum disorder actually means, what exactly is in the spectrum. All right, hey Rose.
Hello.
Hello everyone.
All right, so I'm gonna let Rose introduce herself. So Rose, take it away.
Hi. Thanks for having me on your get together here. I'm Rose. I think you guys invited me on the show because I've got quite a bit of exposure experience with individuals with special needs. So as a roundabout, I have a sibling with special needs. I teach students with SEN, which is special needs, special education needs. For background, if you guys are wondering, I have about less than 5 years experience in the industry of special education, but to give context lah. And in case anyone who listens to this can figure out who I am or where I work from, just know that these are my personal opinions. It doesn't, I don't speak from the organization I work with, and they're just my personal experience and my own judgment calls.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm. So, Rose, can you share with us, I'm sure you've watched the video, right? Yeah, so can you just share with us a definition of individuals who are in the ASD or autism spectrum disorder or autism in general?
Okay. There's so many feedback or research done about autism spectrum disorder. For example, when my brother was diagnosed in the 90s, it was considered autism disorder, just those two words. And with more research over time, the definition changes because what is under the umbrella of autism changes. So today, I think majority will use the term autism spectrum disorder. And at least I don't dare quote anything on my end because I am not a researcher. But from what I know, from the National Autistic Society from UK, they define autism as a lifelong development disability that affects how a person communicates and socializes with others. it mainly affects, it really affects on how they understand the world. So that was the definition from National Autistic Society. But so if to further broaden why is it called, or give you more idea what ASD is, basically the reason why it's hard for them to navigate our world and why it's hard for us to understand them, it is essentially communication and socialization challenges.
Right.
So for example, non-verbal communication between so-called regular people, we can understand body language. We can guess from facial expressions or change in tone of speech when someone has a new message to share with you. When something has changed in the classroom, the environment has changed mode or something, or mood. But persons on the spectrum will not be able to figure out that cue as well, but they can be taught to recognize the cue over time. But it's also depending on their own profile. So another challenge would be, so that's communication, because they cannot, but it takes time to learn
Right.
how to understand nonverbal cues. Or also language is a big part of culture and socialization. So like non-direct language or like metaphors are also challenging for persons on the spectrum to understand. So if we are saying, oh, it's a rainy weather, and then we say it's raining cats and dogs, some of these individuals would process that as you literally seeing cats and dogs coming from the sky.
Right.
But technically, of course not lah, but they take it literally. So it's easier or more direct languages that is simpler to understand for persons on the spectrum. Like, so just instead of saying raining cats and dogs, you can just say it's raining with thunder and lightning.
Okay.
Yeah, so navigating a social world will be hard for persons with ASD because they don't understand our cues, they don't understand our symbols and signages sometimes. And when they don't have the skills or not taught the skills, sometimes socializing becomes quite alienating for them because it's not their fault and it's not our fault also at the same time if we don't understand them. So there's this like gap between what the normal world cues are versus what they understand. So it's a hidden disability in a sense, like unless you scrutinize and look at the behaviors, you can't even see a person who has autism unless you can see the cues. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to ask, because today's topic, we really thought of the topic or the title that we're going to put in, which is everyone should know about autism. Okay, in your opinion, is it really very important for everyone, which is to say adults, children, everyone, knowing what is autism about?
I would say it serves to help persons on and not on the spectrum if you know what autism is. Because it is like an underlying thing, it's a hidden thing. It's not something that you can see a person who has maybe who can't walk. So you know that the challenge of that person is he can't walk. Or person who so that person can't walk. But this individual, his challenge or her challenge is she can't communicate. So how do you communicate that you cannot communicate? And then that person may experience loneliness, anxiety, depression even through their life. So why I would still say it is important for everyone to know, because it's a matter of unlearning what we thought we understand is autism and special needs, and then relearning what the disorder is like, and how can we help persons on the spectrum. Also because I can't really off my top of my head think of the percentages of the population of individuals with autism in Singapore, but it's so prevalent that it's really something you cannot see, because there are even persons who know how persons with autism who can hide their autism very well. So they live in a sense of I don't belong, but I'm trying to belong. So when they're at home or in their own space, they'll be who they want to be, and they try to accommodate to the typical world. Or another term that maybe I might end up using a lot in this podcast is neurotypical and neuroatypical. Because I say typical world, but what I tried to say was the neurotypical world, because a person whose brain were born without deficiencies or any discrepancies, that brain is a neurotypical brain, so our brain, for the lack of better words. Persons with some abnormalities in the brains, there's an actual definition, I just can't recall. Their minds are called their brains are called atypical brains. So that person or neuroatypical people will find it very hard to survive in a world that demands different rules, demands different communication cues.
Right.
So that we know what to look out for. If we don't even know how, even we can't help them, or we are not in the space to help them when we see it, but at least we recognize it. So we can at least understand, oh, okay, this is going on. And then we won't push the person or the family that we see with that person, and we won't scrutinize them unnecessarily. We're just like, oh, this is happening. Yeah, this is happening.
Okay, that is very chim, but very insightful. Yeah, but very insightful.
Like, wow, okay.
Yeah. Okay, the other thing I want to ask, what are some of the popular misconceptions on ASD?
Oh, top of my head is I've always heard the pop culture saying that they're geniuses, they're savants, all of them are very smart. I think part of it it's kind of overcompensating. Like maybe society's trying to, what's the word? Adapt or make the concept of this disability palatable. So to make us feel comfortable, we say, oh, but then they are okay because they have so much skills in this, so much skills in that. But just like how neurotypical people, not everybody is a genius. Neuroatypical people, not everybody is a genius also.
Right.
Some are more talented in music, some more talented in numeracy, some more talented in so many things, and just like neurotypical people as well.
Yeah, so in that own category, there's also diversity.
Yes, so neurodiversity is something very new. I only came across that word like last year, where even amongst the neuroatypical people, they know that they are different from each other. So there was this doctor who she herself got diagnosed with autism later in life, like in her 40s. She realized she received the diagnosis, and then she was saying, like, you all say that a person with autism is a blue dot in a sea of white, or a sea of people with a blue dot, but actually we are not all blue dots. Like every one of us is blue, and a blue dot in a different way. So even amongst them, they can share with you that we are all not the same, just like how all of you are not the same. Yeah. So there's a sense of similarity that some of them are trying to share with neurotypical society.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, wow, I feel like I'm learning so much already.
Yeah.
I am still learning myself.
I mean, this kind of information is totally very new to us.
Yeah.
You know, especially the
neurotypical, neuroatypical.
and the neurodiversity.
Yeah, wow.
This is
Rose,
a lot of words.
these
I
are
know.
all.
Wow, the listeners better be taking notes. I tell you, no excuse for y'all not to understand. Okay.
It will help.
All right, cool. Okay, so I'm just curious, right? Because I'm finding it hard to appropriately address the young boy in that video. Like, so what is the appropriate terminology for us to use to refer to persons with ASD? Is it like persons with ASD or persons in the autism spectrum disorder? Like, how do you appropriately address our friends?
Yeah. Okay. On that note, can you call anyone a retard?
No, that's just never was it ever okay to call anyone that.
Yeah, it's a derogatory term lah.
It's such a derogatory. Yeah, like in any language, in any bahasa that you use. I'm not sure if this podcast is being listened to by non-Malays, but I've experienced so many like direct close experience where people offhand use the word retard. Like I don't know. Say like in the like This disturbs me so much that someone once used the word "you don't sawan" in front of me. Sawan is
Oh my god!
like, and to me, because that person was frustrated and they said that to me. And I'm like, to be blunt, my own sibling has epilepsy. Sawan is epilepsy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
epilepsy.
Something along the similarities of that. And I'm just like, what made you think this is okay? And that stuck with me until now. Like, some people use the state of someone's mind as a way to just degrade any person they feel frustrated with. Like, that's not okay. Like, you can express frustration, but like, don't use other people's debilities lah. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. What was the question? I no to using the R word.
Okay, what is the appropriate term to address our friends?
If you know the person's name, just call them by name.
That's a good tip.
Especially if you are the person on the spectrum, you have been taught that name since you were young. So most of them learn very well through routine. So that is the name they are familiarized with. Like, I have met individuals who come from different parts of the world. So when you say their name in their accent, they respond. You say their name in your accent, they don't respond. That's how rigid some.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, very biased, accent bias. What about if you were to say like boy, girl?
They may not know it's them because some will just not recognize that you're saying boy, girl. They don't know that they are boy or girl. Some know you're saying boy and girl, but they don't know that you're referring to them. So they just keep walking or keep doing their own thing and like in their own world. So what I would say is, if I know their name, I'll say their name. Sorry, want to burp.
It's okay. It happens to us too.
Yeah.
If it's a general conversation like how we are having, it took me a while to get used to it, but through my job I got used to seeing persons on the spectrum or individuals on the spectrum. Alternative could be like persons with autism, individuals with autism. I do not know, I cannot speak for others, but I've heard certain practitioners also use the term A, persons with A, individuals with A. So I don't know, is that for to quicken conversations, or is it really a term that the industry use?
Right.
Last year during one of our conference, we spoke to the keynote speaker was Dr. Peter Van Meulen from Belgium, and he's been in the industry for he's like as old as Mahathir, that kind.
Wow.
Not so old lah.
Mahathir is like 90 something.
Yeah.
That same but different. He likes to refer to the persons on the spectrum that he knows as a generalized word. For example, if he knows Tom and Tom is an artist, he will say the artist. He will say, yeah, Tom the artist, that one. So because let's say Tom has really high interest in art or high interest in train, then you'll say, yeah, the boy who loves train. So it takes because that boy identifies as, I really love train. I am Tom and I really love train. So why don't we dignify that part of him and make it his personality because we speak that language that he doesn't, and then language creates culture eventually. So in that town, when you say artist, or in that town you say the boy who loves toy, everybody know who they're talking about.
Right.
So, macam you don't separate them from
Society, yeah.
This is those persons with autism, they're that group, and then there's us who are so-called normal. When you have that segregation, fine. If that works for you, fine. But when you approach them, it may not be very kind lah.
Okay, so I guess it depends on the situation also lah, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So next up, I think before we get into the nitty gritty about the video itself and how to react when we we meet or we come across a person who's in the spectrum, learn something new, apply.
Yeah.
So, we always hear these terminologies that are loosely very used. For example, like ADHD, OCD. Like, what do you think about this kind of terminologies that are being used very loosely? Like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's so OCD. Or like, oh my gosh, she cannot keep still. Confirm she got ADHD. Very ADHD one, this guy. Like, that kind of that kind of comments.
Yeah, some even self-diagnose.
Oh my god, I have OCD.
oh my God, I've met a person who say, yeah, I self-diagnosed myself with ADHD. I'm like, huh? What? I was hoping for more stories because I've never heard a person with ADHD tell me they have ADHD. And then there's a guy who's like, yeah, I self-diagnosed. I asked, no, because the person said, I'm very rigid, I must do this, I have everything on my calendar, blah, blah. Okay, so maybe he is. And then he said, then I asked, oh, so how long have you been diagnosed? Oh, I just self-diagnosed. Okay, I cannot comment more because I don't know what is his full story. But yeah, it happens. And I would say that, sorry, did I cut in your question?
No.
Okay, so I kind of don't want to make people feel bad that they use these terms loosely, but it's kind of like a series of reasons why it has become that way. I'm pretty sure back way in the day when science was like, the scientific method was all being developed and everything, like these terms, OCD, ADHD, ADD, and many other terms that have fallen on and off the diagnostic manual, these were created to give some kind of direction to researchers and doctors and scientists about, okay, we observe this behavior in one person, what does the test and experiment and scans show? So, okay lah. Okay, so for the sake of research, there has to be a name. It's either you give it 1, 2, 3, 1 until 100, 1 until million, or you have a name assigned to that behavior lah. But I think naturally science becomes part of pop culture, and then pop culture adapts into our lives. We adapt pop culture into our lives. So you see someone who always have a very clean table, OCD is it?
Yeah.
Always.
Who must ADHD, well, cannot sit still, always must rock in their chair. Like it's very minute things. If when you've learned about this diagnosis, you just like itu you also want to call ADHD like that also, because the issue with people with OCD and any of this diagnosis is it affects their daily comfort. It affects them and their ability to continue a day. For example, if you're saying that person or yourself have OCD because I want this place to look this way every day. Great, maybe you're just very routine person. You like this particular standard of living or standard of comfort. And if you don't do it, will you be affected? Will you be will you feel pain in your head? Will you feel headaches and migraines? You don't. These certain individuals, for example, OCD, they may, for example, have to exit a room every room they exit, every dang room they exit, they must off like 10 times, on off 10 times. And if they don't reach 10, they don't feel secure in their mind, their hearts. So imagine you go into every room, even if it's like not your house, and then you do it. How will it affect your social skills? How will it affect your communications? And then you just have to do it, even though it's in secret, you still do it, and people may notice. So then how does it affect you? So that is the kind of like disruption to their life. That's why they have a diagnosis. But if you don't have a disruption and it's just you're making a simple comment, but you use OCD, you bring down the severity of the OCD. You make it look when people have to go through therapy through their lives to get it under control.
Yeah. It's like making light out of the condition, out of the disorder, you know?
Yeah.
I can totally relate to what you just said, you know, someone who has OCD and going to rooms, switching on and off lights just to feel secure. I remember working with this student of mine. He has a brother who also suffers from OCD. This brother of his, he has to off and on his light switch in his room at least 100 times. So he will count. Yeah, he will count. So the reason he said that if he doesn't do that, his parents will die.
Yes. This kind of reasonings in their head, it's reality, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to, you know, people who self-diagnose.
Yeah.
I'm OCD. Yeah, guys, you're just organized.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you're just being organized.
A certain level of comfort, and it's okay. And it's like maybe you see other people are not like you, which is fine lah. And not everybody is the same one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have not really met or you have not experienced what real OCD is.
Yeah. I think it's important. I think what Rose said was really good. Like, whether, I mean, you can, I'm OCD, but then like, how does it really affect your life, your social skills? You know, a lot of times this, like, you know, it usually doesn't.
Yeah.
But for those who are in the spectrum who has actually been diagnosed officially with OCD, it actually like totally echo what Rose said.
Yeah. Do you guys agree that in our society, there are still ignorant people,
For sure.
who doesn't really understand a lot of mental disorders?
For sure.
Yes.
100%.
Every other cab ride I take to or from work, there'll be a comment that I'm like, I have to hold back my judgment and push myself to educate this person. Like, it's not the right time and place.
Bite your tongue. Interesting actually. I shared just now, I have a diploma in psychology. And 10 years ago when I started my psychology journey, I remember having a project that I had to do that is to raise awareness on like destigmatization of mental illnesses and like, which actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Rose, like mental illness also falls under the spectrum, right? Is that it?
Yes, some of them have. So there are so many like. I hope this doesn't offend anyone because it's the technical, like, industrial term. Comorbidities. Like not nothing related to the brain at all. Like, just that this child has is hard of hearing but also has autism. This child has epilepsy but also autism. It could be under the ASD spectrum also, such as Asperger's. I don't know whether Asperger's is still a part of the DSM, but like that ADHD plus ASD.
Right.
So it is so challenging for that person.
Yeah.
So if we can figure out if we can regulate ourselves and help them, why not teach them to, navigate through the world?
Yeah. So I mean, because it's just this whole like mental illness and autism in general, it's very complex, right? And so back to my thing was that 10 years ago I had to do a project as a campaign to raise awareness to destigmatize mental illnesses and autism. That was 10 years ago. And 10 years later, I feel like we have not moved any needle. I feel like nothing much has been done to raise awareness on, since we're talking about autism, it's autism. Like, nothing has been done to raise, like, there's no campaign, or even if there is, it's not like a big deal. And it just like shocks me that 10 years later, here I am talking about it, and I have nothing to say like, like we have done certain things to raise awareness. I don't see it. Like, I only see it within the community. Like, for example, parents with kids who have autism, or educators, or researchers. So it's kind of. I kind of feel like maybe we don't know whether we took a step forward and one step back, or we didn't even move at all.
It could just be an oversight,
Yeah.
With everyone who's involved. To be continued.